So this is video 3, which is section 2, and we're on task 5. So what we need you to do is to look at video 3 and pay attention to slide 4, because it lists various potential benefits, possibly you could call them outcomes, from doing a literature review, and we've got a whole series of tasks based on that. So listen to it maybe a couple of times, or look at it and write a few notes maybe. So here are the 5 potential benefits of doing a review. So the first is that you fill a gap in existing knowledge. So that means something that wasn't understood before is understood differently or in a new way, or maybe a new explanation is provided. So you're filling a gap in knowledge. And maybe you're just identifying that gap. You might not be able to fill it if it needs primary research, but that's one outcome of a review and one benefit of a review. So number 2 is that a review can replicate an existing approach in the literature using the same methods. That's quite useful in certain situations. Number 3, you can apply a particular approach in a new situation. So you transport the work that's been done into a new place. So you can do that in a review because you can apply approach from one piece of research to another situation. And that's a benefit because that can generate critical thinking. Number 4, you can develop a whole new approach. So you can develop new methods through doing a review. You can exchange, for example, you can suggest different ways of measuring something or different ways of collecting data or whatever, but you can develop new methods and methodologies. And finally, number 5, you can check on the validity of existing findings. So you can see whether existing findings hold water in a different situation, different time scale, applied to a different set of people or whatever, but you can test the validity of existing findings. So when you do a review, you could be doing 1 or 2 or more of these. It depends on the context of your work, but these are the 5 things that could be benefits. So once you've absorbed and understood those 5 benefits, you might want to go through the list and jot some notes about what each of them are and any questions you might have about that. But what we want you to do in this series of exercises is to answer 4 questions based on those 5 benefits to get you to think about them. Okay, so the first one is to look at each of them and think, would that be of use to me or not in my research? And think about whether it's easy to work out whether it's useful or not. Jot down those ideas. Number 2, take the 5 outcomes and try and put them in some kind of order of importance. So the top one can be the most important for your work and the bottom one can be the least important. Again, it just gets you to think about your own research and what you're trying to achieve. Number 3, jot down some ideas about how a literature review is beneficial for your research questions. Why are you doing this? And finally, number 4, jot down some ideas about why it's important to do a review rather than new research. Again, you can link this to your own ideas about what your topic is and what you want to know, but basically brainstorm a bit about why a review would be better than new research. So I've explained the 5 benefits of doing a review, and there are others. Those are just some specific things to start with, but obviously there are other benefits too. Those are just 5 particular specific ways of explaining that. And we've given you 4 tasks associated with those 5 benefits, so this is going to take you some time. Just work through it slowly. But this is just to illustrate that you have a template on which you can answer those 4 questions. So you've got somewhere to record your answers. That's important because until you write down the answers, you've not really actually done the task. It just ends up being sort of muddled thinking in your head. You really need to write down some answers and in as full explanation as possible, and if it doesn't flow or make sense, then that's fine. You can just write down why it doesn't flow or doesn't make sense, and that's just as useful to you in terms of your learning process. So another task related to these 5 outcomes is to think about how easy or difficult it would be to achieve that outcome. Again, it's just thinking through what these benefits are and how realistic it is to achieve them, and I think that helps to orientate how a review is done. So look at the list of 5 things and score them E for easy and D for difficult, and write down any notes or thoughts as you do these tasks. This means you can refer back to your thinking later on, because you can have ideas that are quite good and then forget them later on. So really get into the swing and the rhythm of writing notes when you're doing tasks of any kind, whether it's actually doing your review for real. You need to get into that habit and that flow, because all your thinking is important and rich and useful, and you need to record it as you go along. So this is just the template for the previous extra task that we've slotted in here. So you've got your 5 benefits of a review, and here you can score them as E for easy and D for difficult, or maybe even write some notes there about that as well if you wish. So this is section 2, which is actually video 3. This is task number 6, and what we are focusing on here is the phrase interpreting literature in a particular context. So that's the phrase we're looking at. We're actually trying to see what we actually mean by that, because that's what we're aiming to do in a review. And so we need to understand that in a bit more detail. So what we've done is we've given you a number of phrases, and we need you to tick whether these phrases actually explain or not, or may explain how to interpret literature in a particular context. So you tick yes, no, or maybe. So that's the task, and that's the reason for the task. And next we'll show you a little bit more of that in terms of a template. So in relation to task number 6, which is about interpreting literature in a particular context, we're asking you to tick one answer. Here are the first 5 or so of that list. It's quite a long list, but this is just to show you what sorts of things are involved. So number A, understand where ideas come from. Does that explain the phrase above? Does that explain how we interpret, or what we do when we interpret literature in a context? Number B, pinpointing a historical fact. When we do that, are we interpreting literature in a context? Yes, no, maybe. So this is the template for you to use for the task.